Whisper of Ice and Fire video. This week we are discussing Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 4, The Last of the Starks. Now, if you watched my previous video, you know that I was not a fan of Episode 3, but Episode 4 didn't bother me as much, especially when compared to how much Episode 3 bothered me. I feel that a lot of viewers and Redditors and forum goers probably let their frustration kind of carry over from the previous episode, and they were somewhat unfairly critical of this episode. But then again, that could just be me being numb to the stupid writing this show has been subject to, and I might be underreacting, but to each their own. So the episode begins with the funeral pyre for all who were lost against the battle of the undead and the living. I felt sadder seeing Jorah cleaned up and on the funeral pyre than actually dying in the previous episode. There's just something about seeing him so still and knowing he's been fighting for so long and he's come this far for Daenerys, and now he's finally at rest. It's very sad, and it's always really good to see Emilia showing emotion, which is quite rare for Dany, whether that be the way she was written or the way Emilia feels Dany is very private about her emotions, apart from rage and dignity and all that. But her actually sobbing and not just sort of being tearful, it was very well done. I liked it. I also love that Sansa gives Theon the Stark sigil. Before his cremation, she has a pin with a direwolf on it. Because Theon dies a Stark, defending the Starks in the Stark home. He's both a Greyjoy and a Stark, but I think we all kind of know that there's more Stark in him than anything, and it sort of signals his redemption being officially complete, officially recognised by the characters. We see Ghost with scars and a missing ear, and I would care so much more about those wounds on Ghost if they had showed him doing anything at all in the previous 2 seasons. It's just if it's so expensive to CGI Ghost in, why bother spending any money at all to CGI him doing nothing the entire season, especially with what comes up in the future of this episode. I was basically happy with the entire funeral sequence. Jon gives a very nice speech and borrows some lines from the vows of the Night's Watch. Not the vows, but I think it's from when the Night's Watch die as well. So yeah, I like the scene, even if it was a bit impractical. That is, where did the 100,000 white corpses go so quickly? They cleaned up really quickly, really well, and collected their dead and built all those pyres. It's really hard to get a gauge on the passing of time in this season. So then the characters follow up the funeral with a feast, with celebrations, for those who are still living and for defeating the ultimate enemy, really. Dany legitimizes Gendry and makes him Lord of Storm's End. It's kind of an interesting move since he is now, I'm pretty sure, I could be mistaken because I'm not that great with politics, but I believe he's now in line for the throne since he's now officially recognised as Robert's heir. And, he's a male heir of the last kind of king. I'm not sure, that might not be how the lineage and heritage works, but interesting move. But of course she does make this move in order to have Gendry sort of owe her one, in a sense. It's nice to have powerful allies who sort of owe their positions to you. So we can see what Dany's kind of doing there. Davos and Tyrion discuss the Lord of Light. We play his game, fight his war, and win, and then he fucks off. Davos isn't thrilled and never has been with the deities of this world. He's never been one for magic or witchcraft or red priestesses, one in particular. So he's obviously been thinking a lot about law and what exactly his sort of game plan is. Tyrion essentially brushes it off, saying, "It won't make you happy to think about it. Like, don't think about it." And it's kind of infuriating that this is probably the writers saying to the viewers, yeah, we're not going to be revisiting prophecies or Azor Ahai or the Long Nights or the Night King or the Lord of Light or anything like that anymore. This is all politics now, baby. Like, it's kind of annoying that they just brush off and shrug off the magic and religion like that. So, like, yeah, it's kind of annoying that they actually wrote that into a line for Tyrion. Bran says nothing useful, as always. He never helps Dany or Jon in the war against Cersei, but he has plenty of time to talk about his new rims. Walking into the past to check out ancient wheelchair designs. It's fascinating stuff. Please keep putting Bran in this show. So then during the feast, there's the infamous Starbucks cup scene. And if you're not aware, or if you have only seen the episode recently, after they've digitally removed it, there's a scene where Tormund sort of is being all chummy with Jon. He's got his hand around his neck, and it cuts to the scene where you can see the table in front of Daenerys, who is seated, and there's a Starbucks cup sitting in front of her. Actually, I believe it wasn't Starbucks, but it's a coffee cup. It didn't really bother me that much. I only saw it because I knew to look for it, because I'd been told about it. It didn't break my immersion or anything like that. But I think what it represents to me is that after everyone's already feeling like the production team, most specifically the writers, it feels like they've been kind of slack and don't really care anymore, and they're rushing to get it done. Seeing a silly mistake like that, knowing how many people that must have gone through before it was greenlit and put into the final release of the episode, it kind of hits a bit harder, because it's reinforcing those feelings that just no one cares, or the people that are working on this show don't care anymore, which is unfair because it's mostly the writers that are conveying that feeling. But something went wrong somewhere along the line for a Starbucks coffee cup to be aired to millions of viewers in the third last episode of Game of Thrones. So yeah, it didn't bother me personally that much. I thought it was kind of funny, but I can understand why people are upset about it. So the scene continues. Jaime and Tyrion and Brienne playing Tyrion's drinking game. And Tyrion suggests, I'm not really sure what you want to call it, surmises that Brienne is a virgin. She gets upset or embarrassed and leaves, and Jaime leaves after her. It's finally clear to Tormund that Brienne is not interested in him, and his face just drops. All the drunken hijinks sort of melt out of him, and I felt genuinely bad for Tormund. Seeing his heart broken, like you can pinpoint the exact moment when his heart breaks. So yeah, I felt bad for him until it's revealed that he was actually sort of D&Ming with the Hound, who of course doesn't care. And then it becomes clear that it's sort of a comedic respite as he walks off in the arms of a northern lass. So it was funny. The Hound and Sansa have a scene which I think it's either the only / the first, or maybe just the longest conversation that they've had in seasons. The Hound tells Sansa, "There's only one thing that will make me happy, and I swear I can hear air horns in the distance in the background as the hype for Clegane Bowl was reignited." And then there's actually some sort of underrated dialogue between the two that I really appreciated. The Hound says, "None of it would have happened if you'd have left King's Landing with me." I think it's very appreciated. He's talking about all the horrible things that happened to Sansa in King's Landing and after King's Landing. And I can't really remember, but I'm assuming there must have been an opportunity for Sandor to take Sansa with him, but she decided to stay. Because as tough as an exterior as Sandor puts up, he's consistently sticking his neck out and quite nobly caring for the Stark girls, even though there's nothing sort of making him do that. I don't know if it's honor, I don't know if he had a soft spot for the Stark family, or he just believes in justice for the innocent kind of thing. Sansa's writing is actually pretty good in this scene as well. She says, "Without Littlefinger and Ramsay, I'd be a little bird all my life." So, even though these horrible things have happened to her and could have broken a lesser woman, Sansa takes it in stride. And what's that line that Tyrion says? "If you wear your failures as armor, it can't be used against you," or something like that. Yeah, Sansa's like the master at that now. I just really appreciated that interaction, because of course the Hound was taking care of Arya for like a whole season, and now, years later, he's still sort of, it's almost like he regrets not forcefully taking Sansa out of King's Landing, but they both realise that she's right, that she wouldn't have been able to grow, she wouldn't have been able to survive had it not happened. Gendry gets his heart broken by proposing to Arya, but we all kind of know that that's not me. For Arya, she doesn't want to be a lady, she doesn't want to be tied down. I still feel that she should have died killing the Night King, because it seems like nothing's really going to make her happy or whole again. And she's kind of just going to be wandering lost with no purpose now. But what do I know? Jaime and Brienne hook up, and it's really good that Jaime is finally with a good-hearted woman to whom he is not related. But no, I think they're very good together. They are both very noble and very tender to each other. It's very good for both of them. Dany and Jon meet up after the feast and discuss their newfound relationship, I guess Sansa would immediately try and get Jon on the throne. She somehow knows Sansa better than Jon and begs him not to tell her. But he does anyway. Jon makes Sansa swear not to tell anyone else, but she does anyway. So a secret that Ned Stark kept for years to his grave, and quite possibly died for, it spreads in a matter of days because of Jon's honour and Sansa's lack of. Yeah, this season is making me really not like Sansa. After the feast, we have a war council for the last war. Team Targaryen versus the Lannisters, or more specifically, Cersei. And during the council we hear that half are gone, referring to the Unsullied and the Dothraki. Despite seeing that all bar about 6 Dothraki soldiers run into the dark and don't return, and most of the Unsullied were overwhelmed by the forces of the dead. It's kind of typical Hollywood nonsense. In order to make the wars seem more even, in order to make both wars seem more even, we have a large army to fight the undead, and then we still have about half of that army to fight the living, plus 2 dragons, so it's about even for both wars. Even though we saw the Dothraki decimated and the Unsullied, it would have been at least 5/6 or 3/4 of them got wiped out as well, but no, apparently it's only half. In fact, the writers even say, the direct quote is, what she sees, as in Daenerys, what Daenerys sees is the end of the Dothraki, essentially, in one of those behind the episode segments that they do for these episodes. They're talking about the previous episode when the Dothraki charge into the night with their flaming swords, and they say Dany sees the end of the Dothraki, essentially, and then in the next episode they're like, oh no, it's just half are gone. It's ridiculous. Let's just leave it at that. Sansa has a good point about letting the armies rest after fighting the Great War. But as usual, no one listens to it. Probably if she wasn't so annoying and dishonourable, they might. Tyrion's plan is to inexplicably split up the army when they travel to King's Landing. I can't think of a reason other than plot convenience that this would happen, so I'm just gonna move along. In the Godswood, Arya and Sansa officially state that they don't trust Dany. This is to Jon, and Bran is also there doing nothing. I'm really not sure why the girls are so hostile towards Dany, because as long as they've known her, as long as she's been in Westeros, she's been defending their lives with her army at no cost to them, basically. Dany's lost half her army, let's say, for simplicity's sake, and a full-grown dragon, and the most loyal knight that she ever had in Jorah. I don't know why they are so hostile towards her. I guess the writers just have to sow discord somehow, despite there being no reason for it. We have to make that Dany's evil ending. That's how we have to end this show, apparently. So Arya goes on about how they're all family, the last of the Starks are her exact words. And Jon is her brother, not her half-brother or bastard brother. And then, mere scenes later, she leaves Winterfell and tells the Hound she's not going to return. What kind of weak writing is this for this honourable, family-driven character to go from one scene where she is, 100% we're family, we have to do this together, no outsiders, she's not one of us, to leaving Winterfell never to return? What the hell is that? this season gives me the biggest whiplash. This character development, if you want to call it that, gives me just the biggest whiplash, man. And also seeing the conversation, or more importantly, the reaction to the news about Jon from his now cousins, I believe, Sansa and Arya. That would have been interesting and pretty emotional to see, but I guess we should just hear about Tyrion and Jaime talking about sex instead. That's where we are now. So, in a tavern somewhere near Winterfell, Jaime and Tyrion are catching up as brothers, discussing life and love, when Bronn walks in, inexplicably hostile and angry towards the brothers. I hated this scene between Bronn and his Lannister boys. When they last met at the Dragon Pits, Tyrion and Bronn said to each other, "It's good to see you," and they were joking around and bantering, and Tyrion was trying to buy him back onto their side. Bronn dove off his horse to save Jaime from dragonfire when Dany was attacking the Lannister and the Tarly army. But now he's just out of nowhere antagonistic towards the brothers. It's a poorly written scene. It's out of character for Bronn. It felt kind of pointless in the grand scheme of things that Bronn's still trying to get some castle when there's a massive war going on. And it felt so weird. Like, it felt like Bronn was on drugs or something because he was just yammering. It didn't feel, there was no chemistry between them. It didn't feel like a natural conversation if you go back and watch. They're just saying things and then reacting, if that makes sense. Like, they'll just say a line, they're just waiting to say the next line. There's no natural pauses, there's no banter, there's no history between the characters. It's just Bronn being an actual ass and just being rude and threatening and violent for like no reason, when they're probably the closest things to friends that he has. It's just, I honestly feel that this is the worst scene in the episode because it just kind of ruins Bronn as a character and ruins the brothers' relationship with him. And I just don't think we're going to see a payoff. I don't think we're ever going to see a scene where Bronn's sitting in a castle anywhere. I don't think he's going to die because he said he's going to abstain from the war. Now I don't think he's going to flip and fight for Dany with the Lannister boys. I just feel like we're never going to see him again because Jaime will most likely die. And Tyrion is kind of up there and dying if he keeps failing like he has been. So I just don't understand what the hell this scene was. When I was watching it, I was like, what is this scene? What is happening right now? It was disgraceful. So the Hound and Arya leave Winterfell together for King's Landing. They both have unfinished business. I'm assuming the Hound is going to fight his brother. Sort of weird how it's all of a sudden like the most important thing of his life is going to King's Landing to kill his brother. You'd think it'd take a couple days, or hell, even just retire from fighting after killing the army of the dead and just relax, but he really wants Gregor dead. It would be nice to see some road trip antics between the two, but with 2 episodes left, they'll definitely be teleporting to King's Landing. Next we have a scene of Dany and Drogon and Rhaegal, where Rhaegal is shown to be recovering nicely and capable of flying, so the producers spent more CGI budget on showing Rhaegal recovering, only to have him die moments later in the episode. Honestly, Rhaegal should have just died taking out, or fighting an undead Viserion in the previous episode, but I assume they wanted viewers to believe that Cersei's scorpions were an actual threat to Dany and Drogon, so they had to the writers had to kind of sacrifice Rhaegal to show that, these big scorpions mean business, like, better be be careful with those dragons that are otherwise immune to basically everything in the show. Sansa lasts what I assume is mere days before blabbing Jon's secret to Tyrion, who of course immediately tells Varys, so naturally the whole Citadel will probably know within the hour. Jon prepares to ride to, I want to say King's Landing, again I wasn't sure of the plan, and says goodbye to Tormund and Sam and Gilly, and inexplicably gives away Ghost to Tormund. He says that Ghost belongs in the north, he'll never be happy down here in the south. If this is really the last we see of Tormund and Ghost, what was the point of ever putting Ghost back in the show? We had an entire season without him. He's done nothing of consequence this season. This is the first time he's been acknowledged by any character this season. And also, why completely ignore and not say goodbye to the faithful direwolf that defended your body when you died at Castle Black? That is heartless, terrible writing. And I just feel so bad for, obviously this is a fictional dog. But I just don't understand, if you don't want to spend money on a budget animating this wolf, don't put it in at all. Don't write him out in the worst way possible, and have no character ever interact with him as if he actually is a ghost. It's so stupid. Anyway, so Tyrion and Varys discuss Jon potentially taking the Iron Throne rather than Dany. Varys says, I worry about her state of mind, when there is practically no evidence to suggest that Dany is or has acted irrationally or with poor judgment. In fact, as far as I can remember, she has always listened to her advisors against her better judgment, at great cost to her resources, to her army, to her personal life, relationships. She's lost friends and her dragon. 2 dragons now. Like, the only time I can think of that she's gone against advice is when Tyrion told her not to go beyond the wall, and she did. But that was more noble than reckless and mad, It's just, this is bad writing, and this is the writers trying to justify Dany inevitably turning Mad Queen in the upcoming episodes, and as viewers, we shouldn't just buy that. We shouldn't be okay with that. It's out of character, it's lazy writing, just throwing in some lines. They're like, oh, I'm kind of worried about her, she seems nuts. She hasn't done anything to show that. In the meantime, Euron ambushes the fleet for the 3rd time since his introduction to the show. 3rd time. And kills Rhaegal with the Scorpion. Now, a lot of people were very upset about this. They were like, how do you hit a dragon from thousands of feet away in the air on a ship with a Scorpion, hitting 3 for 3 shots? I'm not too fussed about the sort of aim lock of his Scorpions. It should have been shown, but in my head we kind of just skip some short shots of having the missed, like having spears miss Rhaegal, just to get to the same result, that Rhaegal dies. I get what the scene was meant to show me, like it's meant to show me that the dragons are vulnerable to the Scorpions. The playing field is now more level since Dany has lost a 2nd dragon. It just wasn't shot the best way, and as a result people are criticising it because it sort of forces you to suspend your disbelief in a moment that really you shouldn't have asked for that. But as I said, it didn't bother me that much, but I can understand why other people are very bothered by it. So as Rhaegal goes down, Dany decides to dive bomb Euron's fleet, and her guttural scream as she attempts to get close and attack them. It's just amazing. It's like the most enraged that Dany has ever been. Probably the most powerful emotion that Emilia has ever had to display in this series. You never see her emotional and just wild like that, which I thought was amazing. And then I realised that it's probably unfortunate because it's obviously meant to represent her psyche breaking a little bit more. Every time she loses something, she loses a piece of her mind. So now Varys is all like, yep, see, I told you so. I was worried about her state of mind. So Euron's fleet destroys Dany's fleet again. Everyone washes ashore, and Varys acts like he was nearly drowning, but it was terrible. And it led to the creation of my favourite meme of this series so far, which is the Varys drowning face. You should go look that up, it's pretty funny. But yeah, that was some uncharacteristically poor acting from Varys' actor. So off screen, as is commonplace for this episode, all the action happens off screen. Missandei is captured and somehow is the only hostage taken in that siege. I'm going to assume she was with some others in this skiff who were killed, but Missandei was recognised as being important to Dany, so she was kept hostage. But again, that's me coming up with excuses for the poor writing and not poor directing, but poor choices of scenes to include in the episode. There's only so many excuses I could make up to cover that stupid stuff. In the following War Council, Varys calls back to a conversation he had with Dany, where she asked him very politely and reasonably to tell her if he thought she was making a mistake and not go behind her back as he has done with many a previous ruler that he has served. In that same conversation, she promised to burn him if he betrays her, which he basically starts doing in the following scenes with Tyrion as he discusses treason and plotting to put Jon on the throne. So I expect to see Varys burn in the next episode or two. Once again, Dany listens to her advisors about taking King's Landing peacefully and not burning the entire thing down, and once again it costs her, this time her best friend. But people still have the gall to call her the Mad Queen after losing 2 out of 3 dragons. Jorah, the most noble man that ever served her, apart from maybe Barristan Selmy. Missandei, her best friend. Drogo, her moon and stars. Half of her army, potentially her throne to Jon, which is what this whole thing has been about. She's just lost so much, and the viewers, myself included, are now sympathetic with her way too much for her madness to make sense. And I'm someone who never particularly cared for Dany or her storyline, but her arc is going downhill and becoming very disappointing very quickly. And I just feel so bad for Emilia having spent so much time developing this character. Varys essentially plots to kill Dany, so he's definitely going to die soon. And then we're back to Winterfell. Jaime's character arc is completely destroyed as he leaves Brienne in the snow, sobbing in order to return to Cersei. He claims it's because she's hateful, and I'm hateful too. And the writers claim he's addicted to Cersei in one of those behind the episode segments again. I'm assuming though he's going there to kill her under the guise of still being in love with her in order to stop Brienne from following him and getting caught up in a war that doesn't necessarily have to concern her. But if he shows any signs of actually still loving her or trying to save her, then it secures this season as officially bad. downfall of Game of Thrones, because characters regressing to their past horrible selves after in-show years and real-life years for no reason whatsoever other than shock value. It's just inexcusably sloppy writing. And I feel bad for the Star Wars franchise because the writers are heading to that next. So Jaime sets off for King's Landing. Brienne crying was actually sadder to me than any of the deaths last episode. She finally let herself be vulnerable with a man that she was pretty much making sure to always keep her defenses up against. And then as soon as she trusts him and lets him in, she still gets hurt. And just seeing such a strong character, a strong, pure-hearted character who was momentarily happy, just broken again. That was, I guess it's more relatable than the deaths in the previous episode, and yet that just got me more upset than anything I've seen this season, apart from the bad writing, of course. So Dany and about 20 Unsullied and Grey Worm and Tyrion make it to King's Landing, where Cersei has Missandei captive. There's a lot that's wrong with this scene. For example, King's Landing is now in the middle of a desert, apparently. Qyburn disappears after the parley, or in the middle of the parley, and is never seen again. Cersei doesn't have her primary opponent, and treasonous brother and the last living dragon immediately murdered. For no reason. She has 20 scorpions and hundreds of archers pointed at them and doesn't order them to fire. This show has become a run-of-the-mill fantasy show where no one dies unless they're a side character, or it has been officially scheduled in advance with apparently the gods of death. No one gets punished for their mistakes anymore, and it's very upsetting. Tyrion mentions Cersei's baby in front of Euron, but he won't question anything because that would make him an actual character and not a cardboard cutout of a villain. Missandei's last word is Dracarys, which, although powerful, it seems odd considering how much of a pacifist she and the Nathi are. But now she wants King's Landing burnt, even though she just heard that Cersei was bringing all the common folk in to use as living shields. It's very out of character for Missandei. And while it's like a powerful moment for us, it's like, would she really be that upset about her own death that she would order the deaths of millions, not millions, but thousands of innocents, just to get back at Cersei? I feel like the character as we've had her presented to us would not do that. But the mountain removes Missandei's head, and Grey Worm's acting is perfect. He looks away and he's got that forced heavy breathing going as he's trying to maintain his composure. And Dany's is, just seething rage. You can see just not letting herself cry, not showing weakness in front of her enemy. It's really good. Amelia's killing it this season. I think I've had problems with her in the previous seasons where she had no emotions, but she's doing the best she can with a garbage script this season. So Tyrion fails in his negotiations, which I think is like the 5th or 6th time he's failed since joining up with Dany in trying to be peaceful about retaking the throne. So he's consistently let her down, and yet everyone will call Dany mad for just destroying the joint, as she honestly should have in the beginning. Probably would have caused much fewer deaths, especially if you just attack the keep and not the city. should still have her dragons. And it's like, who cares if the peasants think that she's a conqueror or whatever? She has 3 dragons. If anyone steps out of line, she can just like toast them. Should have just burned him when she was thinking about it, honestly. So that is the end of Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 4. Overall, it was a pretty flawed episode, but I just wasn't really surprised by any of the flaws in it. Like, at this point, I shouldn't be forgiving things like this, and neither should you, the viewer. So, I don't know if I'm just numb to the failure that is the writing this season now, or if just in comparison to the previous episode when I was majorly let down, that this one just isn't that bad in comparison. Or maybe I just don't care much anymore because the hope that the season will be redeemed is slowly petering out like the flames of the Dothraki sword. We still have 2 episodes left. I am still hyped for Clegane Bowl. That's basically the main thing that I'm sort of hanging on for now, which we hopefully get next episode in the big battle. Apparently this battle is bigger than... Well, I want to say apparently it's bigger than the one against the undead, but that one was supposed to be bigger than Helm's Deep. So, this must be pretty big. Yeah. I'm hoping for something worth watching at the very, very least. Even if the ending is disappointing, as long as there's no more stupid writing and character regression in the remaining 2 episodes. Like, the bar is so low to impress me now. Just no more stupid writing, no more decisions, no more poor decisions, no more character regressions. That's all you have to meet. This is all you have to meet to make me happy for the last 2 episodes. That's all I'm hoping for now. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode if you're still watching at this point. And let's hope that the final conflict is something that actually blows us away. Thank you for joining me for another episode of A Whisper of Ice and Fire, and I hope to see you next time.